Welcome everybody to the first ever episode of Cooking with Authority. I'm your host, as always, the Man Authority, or you know what, considering we're away from the gaming station, you guys can call me Dave or David or Chef Dave, whatever you guys feel comfortable with. Now, as I mentioned in the video, if you guys haven't seen over on my YouTube channel yet, this is going to be some new content that I plan on adding to the stream, something new and fun that I hope all of you all will enjoy for a while and for however long you guys will let me do this content for you guys. So today, for the first episode, we're first getting into, actually, before we get into it, I'll just let some people know. So for those of you that are joining us live on Kick right now, hey everybody, or if you guys are going to be seeing this on the edited footage over on YouTube, if you guys are seeing this on YouTube right now, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, turn notifications on, all that good stuff so you know when a new video goes out. If you guys are interested in ever seeing the unedited footage, make sure you guys follow me over on Kick, on TikTok, and all my other social media. That way you guys know when I go live and all that other good stuff. So without further ado, let's get right into today, to the first official recipe, again, of a long series I hope to have on this channel. Give me just 1 second, guys. Got to power up my old buddy, my tripod here. Give me 1 second. Just gonna hold off there, little buddy. There we go. So for the first recipe that we're getting into today, comes from another content creator over on TikTok that I've loved some of his recipes, called Cooking for Gains. Some of you guys may know him if you've seen him before. Very popular guy, really good with the the meal prep stuff. However, we are doing a version of his recipe where it was critiqued by I believe another content creator. I have the notes here, sorry. Called Critiqued by Rescue My Plate over on TikTok as well. I've looked into Rescue My Plate. Apparently, he does a couple different times where he's seen recipes and will critique them either to get them better in the calorie count or to make them healthier for you. So that's always good for me. I actually plan on throwing my own kind of spin on it, but I'll explain to that when we get into it. So for the first thing that we're going to, and the nice thing that I do like about this dish is the fact that it is a crock pot recipe, slow cooker, crock pot, whatever you want to call it. So it literally allows you, if you want to make this recipe at home, throw everything in the crock pot, sit back for a couple hours, and you got food. How's that great? The other thing about this recipe is that I'm actually doubling it because for the original recipe called for 9 servings, I'm actually going to do 18 servings because and this was something I'm just bringing to the table. This was one of the reasons why I think many of us don't like doing meal preps in general, is because of the fact that, so many times it's like, oh, you see these recipes, but they're only for 4 servings, 6 servings, 8, whatever the number may be. They're just not a decent enough reason, in my opinion, to make that, especially if I have to do it every week. But I have no problem doubling recipes and then freezing them for ahead of time. That way I can have meals all throughout the month. And if I have to sacrifice, 2-3 hours of one of my days off from work to be able to do it, sure, I'll do it, especially if I can make it for you guys and good content along the way. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first ingredient that we need for this recipe is, oddly enough, chicken. I'm going with just standard boneless, skinless chicken breast, and I won't lie. And for a double batch of this recipe that I'm going to be making, we're going to need 8 pounds of chicken. Now, I wasn't able to get exactly 8 pounds of chicken, so I'm going to have to weigh out what I don't need. First thing I'm going to need, though, is my cutting board and a very sharp knife, which, if you have it, which I will say, if you have any of you guys that have, a knife block that's got those, those little grooves that help sharpen your knife, and you're always wondering about why there's times it doesn't keep it sharpened, that's because you guys, a lot of folks probably just think, oh, take it out, and then when you're done, put it back in. That's it. Technically, it helps hone it, but it doesn't keep it sharp. So literally each time, you kind of want to, to go a couple times back and forth if you really want to make sure that your knives are sharp to your affairs. Now let's see here. I actually have a little scale here down below. This thing will power on. There we go. I have a little scale that I'm going to help to measure out my weight. Though I'm not the biggest fan of this scale, if I'm being honest. I think my mother bought this scale for herself. And while I do like the fact that it does have a couple different measuring systems that allow it, whether it's grams, milliliters, all that stuff. And it does have a tera function, which I like. If tera functions, if you have scales, I would not buy a scale that does not have a tera function, because the tera function literally, if for those of you that don't know, if you weigh something on the scale, you can hit the little button and boop, it goes to 0 while the food is still in there. So you don't have to do all the math in your head or constantly do it. The one thing I don't like about this particular cutting, or not particular cutting board, but this particular scale, and let me show you, I actually just turned off the face tracking text so you guys can see a little lower. Let's get you down to where you can see for the time being. There we go. That's pretty good. Hey, good to see you guys. One of the things I don't like about this is the fact that the electronic composant is like underneath the scale. So like if I got something like a cutting board over top, I have to, oh, actually you guys really can't see it from that perspective. Hold on, let me show you what I mean. Let me get you a little lower down here for you guys. And you guys can see. Yeah, there we go. The thing I don't like about this particular scale is the fact that if I got something like a cutting board underneath, I kind of like have to duck down underneath in order to see what is written on the why is this not moving? Sorry guys, give me one second. There, right about there is good. Like I said, I can't see what is written on the scale, so that is a little bit of a hassle, but it's not the end of the world. So, got my cutting board. It's going to put this on top of my scale just for the time being. So again, so I can at least measure out as much chicken as I'm going to need. Like I said, I grabbed much more than I needed from the store. And just to say, if you guys are, obviously some of you guys out there might be thinking, oh, this is a lot of food, it's going to cost me a lot of money. Sometimes you just have to buy smart, in my opinion. I actually purchased chicken breast, skin off, boneless and skinless, but with the rib meat attached. Okay, I don't mind the rib meat when it comes to chicken breast, because while I can sometimes be a little bit tougher and gamier, on occasion, it still works out pretty well. 7 pounds, 15 ounces. I'm willing to do that. That's roughly 8 pounds. Now, obviously, I don't want, like I said, I don't need, here, real quick, I'm actually going to wash my hands really quick. I don't need that extra chicken, as you guys can see, that one big loaf and that about half little guy right there. So, I am simply going to put this in a nice gallon-sized zip-top bag for later storage. Here, hold on. Just put that out to the sides for a second. Now, the thing is, I'm not going to refreeze this. Like most meats, like chicken or beef or whatever have you, once you thaw something out, it's really hard to re-thaw it back together. The same, I think, can't be said about fruits and stuff, but with raw poultry and all that jazz, it's not exactly a good thing. So I'm just going to put this leftover chicken in my, I'm just going to put it in my, like I said, the zip top bag, and I'm going to put that in my fridge in the bottom shelf where I can have it isolated to where it won't, on its own shelf or in a drawer, something where no cross-contamination. I'll probably get to recooking that chicken in the next day or so, maybe 2-3 days. I wouldn't if you have chicken yourself, I wouldn't push it past a week. Now, I know some people out there don't like it when their chicken comes in these plastic container tubs, and I'm kind of the same, but they do have one advantage that I do have, is that if you're cutting a bunch of chicken up like this, they're a really great way of keeping. Oh, sorry, I was wondering what that noise was. Just the garbage bag descending. It's a really good way of being able to keep all the extra chicken off to the side while you're busy working. And I'm actually just going to put that there for a second. I know I'm doing a lot of hand washing here, guys, and I apologize. Hey, first time I'm going to be learning. So literally we're learning all this together, guys. So there. So I'm going to put my scale off to the side for now. I don't need it right now. And now we're going to get into cooking. But I will say, to prevent myself from having to constantly wash my hands and whatnot, at least for this stage of the cooking process, I just have a couple of nice latex gloves I can use, or latex or nylon, whatever it is. I know some people don't like the you touching foodstuffs with your bare hands, or again, like me, I don't really like the idea of having to constantly wash after every time I move chicken and things like that. So, like I said, I just got these surgical gloves from the hardware, not from the hardware store, from just your local drugstore, everything like that. And these work pretty good, though I will say might needed to get a bit of a smaller or a larger size, I will say. Looks like I accidentally got a pair of large gloves, but they'll still work. A little tight, but that never hurt nobody. Okay, now I'm just gonna move chicken here, move my crock pot over, and we can get into dissecting and carving this this meat. The first thing I do want to do is take off some of the extra fat that's along the skin, along some of the meat. If it's a chunk like this that's kind of really adhered to the meat or something like that, you can go ahead and just slice it through, slice it apart and things like that. If you want to take it off, you can. I don't mind keeping it on. It makes it to where the where it'll be that much flavorful. Now, in the original recipe by Cooking for Gains, he actually just tossed all the chicken just straight into his crock pot and called it a day along with the other ingredients. I actually don't, and then he shredded up the chicken later on. I actually prefer to cut the chicken up ahead of time, because at least that way, I think this can accomplish two things. Number one, if you plan on doing a lot of the meal prep like I'm doing, cutting the chicken into smaller pieces like this will make sure that everything is cooked evenly. Like I said, especially. And the other thing is that I don't mind cutting up the chicken, especially because since I'm planning on rewashing and reusing my knife later on for other recipes in the stream, I don't mind using it, especially if I can make sure every bit gets into. Now, if you guys are wondering what recipes we're going to be getting into later on, that will be for other episodes that you guys will just have to wait for those videos. Or if you guys are following me over on Kick for the next stream, you guys will be able to see all the recipes that we do. Because like I said, we're getting to a couple of recipes here. So I'm just going to say, like I said, and they don't have to be perfect, same uniform. I think uniformity is for factory. Sometimes you want that nice kind of rustic cut look. And plus, some of these pieces you might think are a little bit big, but they will shrink a little bit as they cook. All right, so now that we got the first half of the chicken in the crock pot, it's time for the seasoning. Now, I'm okay with using my right hand for this because this is the hand that's been touching only the knife, which is good. Now, in the recipe by Cooking for Gains, at this point when he puts the chicken in, he would actually use a combination of chicken broth and Sweet Baby Ray's garlic parm sauce for it. And this is actually where rescuing my plate actually comes in, and to lose some of the dietary fiber and to get a little bit of extra flavor in the chicken, he actually says to instead toss the chicken in McCormick garlic spice mix. And as the chicken cooks, the seasoning will actually pull moisture out and therefore make the sauce for the noodles to come. I, unfortunately, could not find McCormick spice mix, so instead I'm just using this garlic parm all-purpose seasoning, and I believe it should do the job that I need. Now, you know what? Actually, at the end of the day, there, I'm just going to loosen up the lid. I know it seems like I'm using a lot of seasoning, and that is okay, because at the end of the day, you know, this flavor base, this seasoning is not just going to be for the, for the chicken as well. It's also going to be the flavor base for our sauce. So I'd rather go kind of heavy on the seasoning, and on the seasoning. Well, let's see. Yeah, you guys can see that I added a pretty decent amount, and I'll mix that in thoroughly later on after we get the rest of the chicken done. There we go. So we got all that in there. Just going to grab my cutting board and set this off to the side with my knife in the dishwasher. I'll take care of that in a minute now. And we can also toss this away. Now onto, right there works. Now, like I said, this hand has touched nothing but the knife, so I'm confident with it handling the seasoning again. And again, we're just going to add in fair amount all around. Oh, got a bit of a big chunky that came in there, but that's okay. And kind of, like I said, just use my dirty gloved hand, if I will, to mix this up nicely. Yeah, a small part of me wanted to mix the seasonings up after the first batch, but I was afraid that I would get too much seasoning on my hand. And I guess, and if they got on the chicken as I was cutting, that's not exactly the end of the world, I guess, now is it? There we go. Again, I'm kind of doing like this digging and lifting motion to kind of just get all the way to the bottom of the crock pot, and just gently taking what's on the bottom, pushing to the top, and letting it get what seasoning lies. There we go. Excellent. You know what? Like I said, I kind of want this to go heavy on the seasoning, because again, this is not just going to be for the chicken as well, but like I said, for the sauce mix, for the sauce that's to come. So I think that about 3/4 of the container should be more than enough. But again, better to be safe than to be sorry. Just gonna mix this around again. There we go. Kind of, again, just dig down underneath. Lift and twist. Lift and twist. There we go. Maybe do another one. And you know what? Just do another sprinkle of seasoning on top, just to make sure that everybody gets nice and coated. Perfect. That should be enough for the job. There we go. Now I'm just gonna, all right, there we go. Now that we got our chicken with all of our seasoning in our mix, it's time to head over to my crock pot, which I have standing by. Put the lid on this bad boy, and yep, we're already plugged and ready to go. Turn this bad boy on to high for 2 to 3 hours. I'm going more for 3 because since of the large mass that we obviously have. Back over to our crock pot. We got our crock pot going here for the next 2 to 3 hours, or until the meat is completely cooked. Now, the final ingredient involves the pasta in question, the protein pasta. Now, in the original recipe, he called for simply adding the protein pasta into the slow cooker once the chicken was near cooked, and then allow the pasta to cook the rest of the way through, cook in there for about 40 minutes. Now, not only is there clearly not going to be enough room to cook the pasta in here, but there's not going to be enough room. If you guys saw how much, and because there's not the same amount of liquid, because we're not using the chicken broth or the chicken stock, in case there's not enough liquid in this, I feel more confident just cooking the pasta ahead of time and then adding the chicken into it once we're done. So I'm actually just going to weigh out the pasta now. Weigh out the pasta now for later. Now, make sure that doesn't fall out. Sorry, guys. Now, for the pasta in question, it's going to require some nice protein pasta. And this particular variety is one that whatever protein pasta that you like is your preference. Though I will say the ones I do like are the ones I did pick out are these little ones called rotinis. Some protein pastas like penne or other stuff, but you know what? Something about the idea of eating something that's like a little mini, mini radiator. Something's pretty cool. So for this recipe, we're going to need 32 ounces of protein pasta, which I believe should be about 2 1/4 boxes of protein pasta, but we'll weigh that out once we can. And actually, I think I might need a bigger bowl, honestly, for all this, because I don't think all this is going to fit, but we'll see how much we can get in here. Yeah, I can already tell that bowl is not going to be enough for all this protein pasta. If anything, I could have just kept the boxes out to the side. I probably should have just done that, but hey, again, this is our first time doing this, guys, so we'll find a much larger, and something other to hold it all in. What do I have? You know what? Sorry for the noise. Sorry. Need the right noise for that. Okay, so put this one on here instead. Mute. All right. Again, that's my bad, guys. I did not think it was going to be that much. All right, so that's, let's see, that's 29 ounces. So from this box, we just need 3 ounces of protein pasta. So let's see, just need the 3. Yeah, that'll work. That's just enough. We'll keep this box out for our later uses. So like I said, once again, once the chicken's pretty much close to cooked, we'll get into making the rest of the dish. And already, guys, I can tell just from the smell, this is going to smell and taste good, I hope. All right, guys, so we're just about close to getting done with our chicken pasta. According to our timer, we got 5 minutes left on this bad boy. So I think that is a good time, 5-10 minutes, to deal with that mound of pasta we have to deal with. So again, we got 32 ounces of protein pasta in my pot. And I'm just going to cover this with enough cold water just to cover. It's going to take a lot of water. There we go. That should do the trick. Gonna get this back over my burner on high heat. Add just a touch of kosher salt just to season the pasta. And let that do its magic. Now, once the pasta is officially done boiling, because, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have enough. Realistically, there's not enough room in my slow cooker to add the pasta in to cook. That's why we're doing it this way instead of how in the original recipe. By doing it this way, it allows us to be able to cook it, so that way the pasta and everything should get done pretty well. Now, normally, under normal circumstances, I would, once the water reaches a boil, I would back down the heat to about medium, let it cook for about 7 to 9 for additional time, or whatever the packaging says to do. Technically, a lot of packages will always say like, oh, bring the water to a boil first, then add the pasta. I prefer just to add the pasta as the water's heating up because factory made pastas really don't need that much cooking. Well, not too much, at least. It doesn't need all that extra water since they're already partially cooked anyway. So using just enough to cover the pasta by about an inch or so of water is perfectly enough for what we need. So yeah, that's pretty much all we need. So all we got to do is wait for our pasta to finish boiling and then our chicken to get done cooking, and then we will go from there. And to be truthful, I don't want this pasta completely done. I just want it just shy of al dente. Al dente is a good way, because since we're going to be reheating this later up in the microwave anyway. Now, a good way to tell if a pasta is al dente is simply by a taste test. What you want to do is kind of shove the noodle near the back of, kind of maneuver the noodle near the back and like where your molars are at. And just use that as an indicator. If you feel a little bit of toughness, well, not even toughness. Toughness is a bad word. If you feel a little bit of a, what's the word I'm thinking of here? If you feel a little like firmness, like almost like a bit of a toothiness type of situation, then you're good. Then you know your pasta's al dente. If it's still really too firm to where it almost feels like it's got a crunchiness, then you do not have it cooked out enough. Now that our pasta is done, I'm just going to town slowly draining the pasta into a colander. Now, if I was using a much smaller pot, I would use, I could just use a strainer like this. But since our pot is primarily large, I know for a fact that this particular strainer is not going to be big enough to be able to hold off all this pasta, especially as the water is going through it. So kind of doing a combo method of using this spoon that's got a tiny little hole in the middle so the water can drain from the pasta. On to the next step, which is, since we have our pot over here, this will make this next step a lot easier, and to add in the chicken from our crock pot. So I'm going to turn the heat off, uncover, and simply spoon in the chicken chunks, broth and all, as much as it takes into our pot. In fact, hold on, I'm actually going to use this to move it just a little bit closer so it's one less thing to move around a bunch. There. Kind of using the spoon as well, the ladle as well, to maneuver all the chicken down to mix in with the rest of the pasta. And this is actually also a good time. I'm going to add in my 2 tablespoons of butter, because as this melts, my method is that the hot chicken, the chicken liquid from inside the slow cooker, and the residual pasta water that is left on the chicken, or the residual pasta water that is still going on inside the pot and with the pasta, will actually almost form like this really delicious emulsion. That is my theory anyway. There we go. I think we basically got everything out of the crock pot, which is good. Because holy crap, do we have so much food in this pot. I mean, guys, I'll have to try to show it to you as best as I can, because like this thing is fucking massive. I mean, look at this. It's overflowing the pot. This is so much food. I don't even know how I'm going to portion this, but we're going to try. Now, like I said, the original recipe didn't call for how much food it was per serving. It was just 9 servings. So we'll just see how much we can get per serving. There we go. Another 15. So with 1 pound portions, we were able to get 12 portions. So if we wanted the full 18, probably would have gone maybe probably 10-ounce portions or something there other to compensate. But honestly, I mean, it's still a dozen more meal preps for me. I think that is still very well good. Well, I'm going to box all of these up and get everything cleaned up. But thank you guys so much for joining the first ever episode of Cooking with Authority. And also, thank you guys for sticking around for the whole live stream. Again, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please make sure, as always, to hit that like button, subscribe, turn notifications on so you know when a new video comes out. And for those of you guys that are following me on my social media, please make sure to swing by when I'm live streaming again, guys, if you want to see everything. And not I'm just talking about gaming, I'm talking about this. If you guys want to watch me do all the unedited content from this series, feel free to head over to my social media. But until next time, guys, when I'm back on the screens and in your faces, this is your man Authority signing off for now. Peace out, everybody.